Guys, and welcome back to today's tutorial. So we're making trousers for men today. Unlike the female one that has a hip curve, this one is going to be just straight. Okay, now let's go straight to the tutorial. We'll measure 2.5 on our waistline. Okay, so that's my pattern paper that I'll be using. I'm measuring 2.5 and I will use this 2.5 as the turn up for my waistline. The next thing I have to measure now is my crotch depth. Okay, and my crotch depth is hip circumference divided by 4. That's the standard formula for getting your crotch depth. So my hip circumference is 48 inches, and if I divide 48 by 4, I'm going to have 12 inches. So that's what I'm going to apply at this point, and that will serve as my crotch depth. You can decide to add 1 inch to this crop depth to make it 13 inches or ½ inch to make it 12.5, just to create a little ease on that crotch area. Now I'm going to apply my hip circumference. Now my hip circumference is 48 inches. If you divide that by 4, it's going to be 12 inches, and I'll also apply my 12 inches on this point to create hip line. Now we'll mark our hip line on this point. The next thing to do is to apply our waist circumference divided by 4. Our waist circumference is 40 inches. So if you divide 40 by 4, you're going to get 10 inches. So apply that here. You can go ahead and add ½ inch to that just for a little ease on the waistline. So we need to connect this point to our actual hip line with a very straight line. Now we've created our waistline and our hip line. We'll go ahead and create our crotch extension. And for our crotch extension, if you add 2 inches to your hip circumference, you're going to derive 14 inches. And if you measure very well, 14 inches will likely be your thigh circumference. So for my thigh, I'm working with a thigh circumference of 28 inches. So 28 divided by 2 is going to be 14 inches, which is exactly what I have on my crotch extension. So just connect that with a straight line to our hip line. Now the next thing we'll do now is to measure the full length of our trouser, and I'm working with a full length of 42 inches. So we'll just measure from that waistline to 42 inches, and that will be the full length of our trouser. Now we'll mark that at this point. Then you go ahead and add 2 inches for your hemming allowance, and this brings it down to 44 inches. So mark a straight line on that point to create our ankle, which is the bottom part of our trousers, as well as our 2-inch seam allowance. So I've marked that. So that's our hemming allowance, and that's the bottom of the trouser, which is our ankle measurement. We're going to apply on that point. Now what we need to do is to measure and mark our ankle measurements. I'm working with an ankle circumference of 15 inches. So if you divide 15 inches by 2, you're going to get 7.5 inches. Now we'll apply 7.5 on this point, and that's our ankle measurements. Now if you apply that 7.5 on this point, because we want a trouser that's a bit slim and fitted on the legs, we'll just extend this hem a little bit. Just mark about 9 inches depending on the height of your client. If you mark 9 inches on that point, you also apply your 7.5 on that point. Okay, then you connect that with a very straight line. I did this because I want the trouser to come out straight on that point. I don't want it looking big on towards the ankle. That's why I had to extend this line a bit by 9 inches. So instead of connecting with a straight line from my crotch extension to that point, I just marked that point so that I'll connect it to this point, okay? So once you connect that, you confirm that your knee circumference divided by 2 is 9 inches, and you confirm that your 9 inches matches at this point. And I've just confirmed that, and my 9 inches matches on the knee line. So that's, I have my 9 inches on that point, and that's it for the legs of my trousers. Now back to our crotch. What we need to do here is to just measure 1 inch upwards, then you connect that on that point to create your crotch line. Then on the waistline, we're coming down by 1 inch to create our waist slope. That slope will be on the waistline, and once we've created that, you link that up to your actual waistline and you have your waist slope. So once you've done that, you're sure that your front pattern is now ready. Then the next thing you have to do now is you have to create the point where your pocket goes, okay? So just mark out your pocket depth, which is usually between 7 inches and 8 inches. I'm using 7 inches. Then for this point, I'm using 2.25, that's 2.25. So you just link that point up to create your pocket. Our front pattern had no seam allowance. To create our seam allowance, we're going to add everything to the back pattern. We'll extend the crotch first of all by 2 inches. You can actually extend this crotch by 2.5 just to create a little ease for your client on the crotch line. Then every other part will be extended by 2 inches, which will now serve as our seam allowance when sewing these pants, okay? So just apply your 2 inches all around from top to bottom. After that, you also extend this crotch depth by 2 inches. Then the waistline, you can extend on the waist point by 1.5. Just to make it a bit fitted on that point. Then you connect those points up. For the waistline, we just fold this in and sew it. Then we'll pass our rope through it, and that will be the closure. So we'll pass our rope through it. That's what we'll use to tie up this trouser. Then one very last thing we need to do on our back pattern is to create our butt rise. For the front, you remember that we measured, I said either 1 inch or ½ inch from the waistline to create the slope that comes down in front. But for the back, it needs to go up. So the back will have a butt rise, which is about 2 inches or 2.5. So you mark that 2.5 on that point and link that up, and that will be for your butt rise. So you're going to connect that point straight to the waistline. So I have mistakenly cut out the extension I added for my back and the front. Okay, so that extra point where you're going to fold in to create the case for your rope or for your lace, I cut it out, but ensure you leave it there, which is the first 2.5 inches we measured, if you remember that. So just leave it on that point. What I'll simply do now is to cut out another piece of pattern paper and stick it on this point to create our extension for the waistline. Okay, so I'll stick my 2.5 and I'll at the same time stick it at the back. But if you want to leave it like this, then you have to cut an extra fabric to create that point, which will be a bit clumsy. So it's better to add it when creating on the pattern. Then when you're cutting on fabric, you apply it adequately how it should be. So it's that simple to cut a men's trouser, and this is just what it will look like. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. If you have not subscribed already, kindly subscribe to my channel and turn on all notifications. Ensure to have a look at my other videos and give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye.